Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Here on this show, we spend 1 week highlighting an up-and-coming North American player. Throughout the week, we find out more about the player's history, their personality, and their playstyle over the course of 6 short episodes. On Monday, we'll interview the player and find out more about them. Tuesday through Thursday, we'll watch a game from each of the various matchups casted by your very own Fear Dragon. On Friday, we'll check out a generally awesome game with some sick play, and on Saturday, we'll kick it back with the player and have some wacky fun with some randomly selected events like handicap ladder matches, karaoke, and dance contests. Each episode aims to be about 20 to 30 minutes long, so you can learn more about the North American StarCraft 2 scene without interrupting your busy WCS schedule. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, I'm going to have a really awesome guest, and it is going to be the current captain of the newly formed Rootseed Academy. I want to welcome onto the show the Canadian Protoss player, hailing from Canada, of course, is going to be Rootseed's Bones. How you doing tonight, Bones?
I'm doing good. Just got done with midterms, which is a big relief. Yeah, excited to be on the show.
That's good to hear, man. I freaking hate midterms. They absolutely suck. Good luck with them. Best of luck with them. But for those of you guys just tuning in for the first time, this is, of course, again, Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. And we have basically a 6-week schedule with the show. Kind of go over it really quickly for those of you tuning in for the first time again. So Monday, which is going to be today, we're going to go with an interview over the player. It's going to be about 25 to 45 minutes, somewhere around there. And of course, Tuesday through Thursday, we'll go over each one of the matchups in a different game that's going to be casted by myself, as well as one of my lovely co-commentator friends, such as Master Dog, Boisterous SC2, Zombie Grub, etc. And of course, on Friday, we're going to be watching just an awesome game from any one of the matchups that Bones here has submitted to us. And Saturday, we're just going to relax, have some fun. Could be doing some karaoke, could be playing arcade games, could do origami. I mean, anything could happen there, man. And I have not told Miles exactly what that's going to be, so he's going to have to look forward to that as well. But with that being said, Miles, let's go ahead and just get this interview started. And, let's start off by saying, tell us a little bit about yourself. If you had to kind of give yourself a short little summary, how would you give it?
Well, short. Okay. I'm 19 years old, hail from Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. It's about an hour outside of Toronto, where the WCS Season 3 finals are going to be. That's going to be great. I play Protoss, and as you already said, team captain of Root Gaming's Academy, Seed. And I guess that's about it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. And I mean, that's definitely going to be that's a big honor to be the captain of one of those up-and-coming teams, especially with a name like Root behind it. But let's shift back a little bit further in history. How exactly did you get started in esports? Did you start by playing Brood War? Did you play Warcraft 3? Did you play Counter-Strike or something? Like, how did that start?
None of the above. Yeah, I actually didn't really play Brood War, didn't really play. The only RTS game I actually played before StarCraft 2 really was Age of Empires, which was quite the fun game back in the day. Mostly playing against AI, messing around. But actually, I played World of Warcraft for a while. Kind of got bored with that. Not bored, but, moved away from that and kind of started playing more StarCraft 2, which I picked up shortly after the release. And then around 2012, maybe a bit earlier, I started playing only StarCraft 2 eventually. Just switched entirely, and that became my game. Kind of got into Masters League and slowly rose up from there.
A true story, man. And I think that's actually a way that a lot of people got into it, so it makes a lot of sense. Starting maybe a little bit more casually with Brood War, and then StarCraft 2 comes out, you start playing a little bit more competitively, as the scene was a little bit more apparent, I think, to a lot of us, myself included. But yeah, and you mentioned that you were 19 years old, so are you currently in college right now?
Currently in university, which is, I guess,
Yeah.
the equivalent of college in the States.
Mhm.
I guess there's not really that distinction
Yeah.
much in the States. Going to UIT, which would be a meaningless acronym for most people. It stands for the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, which is a university about 10 minutes away from me. Currently studying networking and IT security, which is actually proving
Wow.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, that stuff's hard, man. I mean, I'm a
Yeah,
computer science major, so I can definitely tell everyone in the audience that's yeah, got to be pretty smart to do that stuff.
yeah. I actually find the computer science, like the programming, to be the hardest, and the networking stuff is actually pretty interesting and practical.
All right. Well, we'll become Wonder Twins sometime, and we'll form the ultimate like software slash networking slash computer being, because I have the opposite problem. um, but cool. So, does your family actually know at all about your involvement in esports?
I don't really know. Somewhat.
Uh
I don't
huh.
really talk to them about it much because it's
Hmm.
kind of they're old. Kind of typical. Don't I don't know how to
Hmm.
put it. Just as you would expect from parents, don't quite
Yeah.
understand. I've not really made the huge effort to try and make them understand. Maybe I should drag them out to the WCS finals to show them firsthand. But so yeah, they kind of know. They kind of know that this is my passion, but at the
Hmm.
same time have the again somewhat typical attitude of school or work comes first, or has to come first, rather. Yeah, so that's about it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm actually kind of curious, like, if your involvement, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about this later on, but if your involvement in esports gets maybe a little bit heavier, maybe you get an offer to become like a full-time pro gamer, and let's just say that you decide to do that, or maybe you decide not to do that, depending on whichever would be more likely for you. Would you tell your parents about that at that point?
Yeah, well, I kind of have to
Yeah.
since I'm living at home and attending university from home
Hmm.
currently. So, but obviously that switch would heavily involve them. I think that would be an option if it was sustainable.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of obviously a far-fetched dream, or
Hmm.
has been rather, given the state of the North American scene. But I think if things turned around with WCS and whatnot, and there was an actual opportunity, maybe during when I have more time to play, when school is not that heavy, or
Hmm.
during the off months of school,
Yeah.
if I could commit and if I could get to a level to be able to, take a semester off or something and actually viably sustain myself or whatever, I think that
Hmm.
would definitely be a good move.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, there
Did I
are.
answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you
What
definitely
was the
answered it.
question?
It was just kind of like about whether you tell your how you'd feel
All
about telling
right.
your parents
All
about it
right.
and everything. And
Yeah, no, I'd feel fairly comfortable talking to them about that. But again, it's um, kind of the current, like, well, okay, you want to be a professional gamer, well, how are you going to support yourself? What
yeah.
what money you're going to make? Money?
Hmm.
What? I need to make money? What are you talking about? Um,
Why is that a
that's
thing?
kind of the crux of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rough, but hey, I mean, I think that you can still achieve a lot just being in school. And personally, I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
recommend sticking through it in school, at least for now. And hey, look at people like Suppy, look at people like Polt. It's definitely doable.
Yeah. Yeah. Balancing school with StarCraft isn't that bad, except
Hmm.
for when like midterms or finals or whatever pop up. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not that bad. Plenty of free time. I guess it also
Hmm.
depends what type of program or how competitive a field or slash program slash school you're in. But for me,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not that bad. So that's basically the goal for me at the moment, is to stick it out with balancing the two. And if there's ever an opportunity, well, seize it.
I like the mentality, man. But kind of moving on. Like, what does your normal day look like? I mean, again, you're a student, you're in college, but how do you normally spend your day?
Well, most days I have classes starting at like 9 a.m., 8 a.m. So I begrudgingly get up for those. Either take the bus or sometimes I can get a ride. I don't really drive myself. So either bus, but as I said, I'm pretty close to the school, so it's just like a 20-minute bus ride. Um, And then, yeah, the days are obviously different from then. So, 2 days I've got evening classes. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't stay at the school. I come home between classes because I can, and then maybe play some StarCraft, finish off an assignment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just balance my time as I go.
On the fly, man. That's the way to do it.
Yep.
But I mean, on average, how much time would you say that you actually practice StarCraft?
Do you want the truth?
Give it to me,
uh,
man. Give it to me straight.
Not as much as I could or should, but hmm, maybe a few hours a day
Mm-hmm.
in terms of actual practicing, and then a lot of time of hanging out in Skype with the other seed players or
Mm-hmm.
watching streams or whatever. Yeah, obviously schedule's been a bit thrown off with midterms, but
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 hours maybe of actual playing a day, ideally.
Yeah, but
So not a ton, but
to be fair, I think watching the streams and talking with other like really high level players is also an important part of being really good at the game, right? Because if you
yeah,
kind of just isolate yourself, you don't necessarily learn quite as much, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. And let's talk a little bit about your team since we're sort of on the topic about being on Skype and everything with your teammates. And again, you're the captain of the Root Seed Academy, a very newly formed team. So can you just tell us a little bit about the team? And I don't know if you have any particular goals behind it, like objectives. Why was this team actually formed, and why did you join the team?
Uh, well, I don't know why it was formed. I assume
Mm-hmm.
because Root wanted to make an academy, so they did. um, I actually remember hearing rumors about Root making an academy going a while back, so I guess they finally um, decided to do it fully, which is great. I joined because it seemed like a great opportunity to be under the Root name. Clarity obviously had a bit of a downturn there. Don't want to really talk about all that all too much. Not really
Mm-hmm.
necessary, but so I just thought Root and Seed or Seed, what Seed under Root rather, um, as a good opportunity. Thought I'd be perfectly fit to be captain to lead that team, um, to do great things within the up and comers scene,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, hopefully, me myself eventually move to the main team
Mm-hmm.
if things go well. And of course, Root, yeah, because Root main team would be kind of very high up there within the esports scene or the esports hierarchy, I suppose.
Yeah, it's an absolutely great team, and I have to ask, like, what are some of the responsibilities that you have as captain on Team Root?
Uh, I don't know. Uh, well, it kind of varies.
You're
As
not the
things
first
come
person
up,
that's told me that. They're just like, hmm.
I don't know what I do. I mean, the captain, what does that mean? I don't know. Well, um, I mean, I guess I can talk about that. We've kind of got internal rankings going on, so I kind of organize that to kind of see how people match up. Um, we're not really in any team leagues as of yet. I would like for us to be in team leagues, and just any issues with the players or whatever. I guess I'm supposed to be the first line to deal with that. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's
As I
fair.
said, I'm not entirely sure
Hmm.
yet exactly rather entirely what my exact role is, but that's kind of how I see it so far, is to kind of organize the players, and
Hmm.
when it comes to internal rankings, potentially team leagues, show matches, or team show
Hmm.
matches rather, and the like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm kind of curious, like, so what has joining the Root Seed Academy offered you so far, and what kind of benefits have you found from it?
Hmm. So far, um, I guess mostly so far, mostly it would just be practice opportunities with the other players. The internal rankings just started up, so that's kind of an opportunity to, I guess, establish who stands where in the academy, and then use that to kind of determine who's going to be maybe candidates for consideration for the main team, I guess, I would assume. Um, so obviously there's that opportunity of advancement, I suppose. And I guess the promotion of being under Root, because Root's a very established team with fan base and whatnot. So anything I want to do as a part of Seed can have that backing of Root and their writers and whatnot, and their media people and whatnot. Yeah, and as goes with that, the exposure of that. And yeah, just the practice with the other players on the team so far. I know a few of them, or haven't, or previously knew a couple of them. Gotten to know most of the players so far pretty well, and yeah, we've done a decent amount of practice with each other, which is pretty useful.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. And I guess we'll just kind of move straight along into something that players generally feel a little bit more comfortable talking about, which is going to be the gameplay. And all right, hypothetical situation. You said you played World of Warcraft, so you're used to role playing situations, right? I'm sure you played in a role playing server in World of Warcraft.
No. God, no.
All right, but we're gonna pretend like you did, okay? And we're gonna role play a situation, okay? So, Dustin Browder
Right.
is entered into a big boxing contest. He actually picks up MMA fighting, and unfortunately, his first
Feasible.
yeah, it makes total sense. And
Does he
you
wear
know,
rocks as gloves? Do his
uh,
gloves look like rocks?
no, but it's actually his very first official match is against The Rock from wrestling.
Mm.
And The Rock
Make a
actually,
good movie.
yeah, exactly. And The Rock actually KOs Dustin Browder, and Dustin Browder is no longer able to, head StarCraft 2 and all the decision making behind it. So they say, you know what? Found this kid. He's currently captain of Root Seed Academy. I mean, seems pretty awesomely smart. He's doing some really smart stuff in school as well. Let's hire him, all right? We're going to replace Dustin Browder with this kid. And that kid is you,
Smart
Miles.
move.
Very smart move, man. And what do you now, as head of Blizzard and the StarCraft 2 division specifically, what do you do? I mean, you can change WCS, you can change the ladder pool, you can make every single Blizzard employee go to every single StarCraft event with Blizzard hats on. Like, what would you do?
Um. Hmm. Hmm. I mean, you could. There's probably a lot of people who could go on a big rant about redesigning the game and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I think the ladder pools are in a fairly good spot with matching up with WCS 7 maps, matching up with the WCS pool. I guess it would be nice if they would support the map making community more, which actually Red Bull is doing kind of
Mm-hmm.
with the latest Team Liquid map contest. That's pretty great. Um, yeah, support that to get some better, more variety of maps. Um, although supporting map variety is kind of hard as a Protoss because map variety can sometimes mean like weird to take naturals and whatnot, and suddenly you can't forge fast expand, and weird to take thirds. So it seems a lot of actual map balance is based around Protoss and how Protoss has to have easy to take bases, relatively easy to take bases rather,
Mm-hmm.
um, to be able to actually macro. Um, but so I guess that's all I'd really do on the map front is maybe support the mapping community more, to get some more creative maps, or rather just more high quality maps, and then incorporate those into the WCS and the ladder pools. As I said, I think what they're doing with matching the two, or having the two matches, is great. In terms of WCS, entirely, as a North American player,
Mm-hmm.
leaves much to be desired. Um, Obviously, the region lock is still in discussion or whatever. Um, that was a really useful interview they put on Team Liquid. Not really. Um, but I guess with regard to that, I actually think the ideal solution would be two region lock based on residency.
Mm-hmm.
So, your Polt or whatever, or any other Koreans who want to live full time in North America can play WCS North America. Um, Obviously, you'd have to make accommodations for like Chinese players or whatever, since they're not in an official region. Um, do they already have accommodations for like Chinese players? Are they incorporated as part of
I
Korea? Because I know if
I
you're
don't
playing
think
out of
so.
region right now, you have to pay your own travel.
Hmm.
So do those players have to pay their own travel no matter where they are? I
I
don't
don't think
know.
it's actually been discussed or announced yet, but that is a really good point, and
So
it's a
yeah,
really iffy situation.
I think an overall region lock would be ideal, and then you have to compensate for that to not totally kill Korea by sending all the good Koreans back to Korea.
Hmm.
So I think if you region locked, but at the same time gave Korea more prize pool and more seeds to the season finals or whatever.
Hmm.
Obviously, they're talking about redesigning the season finals. I don't know exactly. That could be a good idea, but if it means just taking away the season finals, then that totally destroys everything. If you could take away season finals and replace it with an equivalent, so without really taking away the what that adds, I think it
Hmm.
would be an okay change, depending on how they do it. But given what the current system is, I think if you region locked based on residency, but gave Korea more seeds and more prize pool to acknowledge that Korea has better players and whatnot, and a bigger player pool of good players, that would allow for Korea to still thrive. Maybe if you could incorporate bringing back Star League somehow. I don't know how you do that because obviously Korean players aren't very happy with only having one tournament and losing having GSL and OSL at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would help Korea and North America, help the up and coming players in North America at the same time. In that, players like me, other players on seed from North America would actually have a good shot at
Hmm.
being Challenger League players or whatever, and being within striking distance of Premier League. And I don't think that would hurt viewership all that much. It may even benefit viewership. Obviously, there's a lot of people that'll say, I don't want to watch shitty North American players, um, which is an okay uh, opinion to hold, but that opinion kind of negates or ignores rather the aspect that North American players are relatively shitty because there's very little opportunity or motivation to actually commit as much to the game.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, I think that they don't. It doesn't seem like Blizzard's looking to do full region lock. So I think at least partial region lock to give North American players more opportunity would be ideal. Obviously, coming from a biased North American player.
I think it's fair, man. You have to stand up for not only just like yourself, but also what you sort of believe in. And I think it sounds like you kind of want to make quite a few changes to WCS, in terms of how the region lock works, and then that kind of cascades and domino effects. Like, well, because of that, then you'd have to do some adjustments in Korea and all this other stuff. But yeah, I actually do like a lot of the ideas that you're kind of suggesting. But I guess moving away from the politics maybe of esports, let's talk about your gameplay and your gameplay in all the three matchups. So let's just go through one by one. PVZ, PVT, PvP. How do you feel about the matchups, and where do you feel like your strengths and weaknesses as a player lie?
Jeez. Let's start with PvP. PvP is my
Mm-hmm.
favorite matchup, because it's the most straightforward to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't really want to. I mean, how much detail should I be going into? Because I could go into all the nuances, but I've got replay packs and threads or
Mm-hmm.
brief rundowns out there that people could look at. Um, Basically, PvP, I kind of open up a Stargate slash Robo, and just play reactively based on what the opponent's doing. So the opponent could blink all in, they could gate expand, they could, there's all sorts of things they can do, but it's supposed to be a, kind of one size fits all for that. Into Colossus, which is kind of unorthodox.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, actually, I guess it's coming back into favor, going Colossus. Laser beam wars.
Yeah.
Used to be like Immortal Archon was the standard, but it's kind of a it's kind of a trick to go Colossus. I just go 3 Colossus into Storm, and then Tempest, and then late game is kind of the standard progression for my PvP. Obviously, if the opponent's doing something wacky, I'm scouting that with Phoenix or Hallucinated Phoenix, and adapting. So it's kind of an adaptive style, and it's kind of the most straightforward to play like this most straightforward matchup to play like that. I feel. Um, so those are my thoughts on PvP, basically.
Yeah. So,
Um,
really quickly, actually, some questions about the PvP then. So, you say, I've seen a lot of different Protoss players sort of have different opinions about this, but the late game of PvP, as you said, sometimes it turns into those big laser beam wars, but, we've seen Protoss players mixing in the Tempest. How do you know how many Tempests to get and when to get them? Because I feel like that's one of the things that a lot of Protoss players have been struggling with in late game PvP. Because it's like, if you get too many Tempests and they just don't have that many Colossus, your Tempests are effectively worthless almost, because Tempests take like 6 shots or something to kill off like a Zealot.
no, not necessarily,
Hmm.
um, because I guess I'll just run down the progression. So I go 3 Colossus, Storm, Tempest, and that actually accounts for most 90% of what happens, which is either the opponent has kind of opened Blink to respond to me opening with 3 Phoenix and
Hmm.
harassing them, into Chargelet Templar. Obviously, the goal is to kind of match expansion timings and whatnot, not fall behind in that respect. But the Storm is really important to deal with to win on the ground.
Hmm.
Um, and the Tempests come in to deal with if they're switching Colossus, which is actually a surprising number of people. That's been their response lately, is to go Colossus themselves, double Robo.
Hmm.
And while that's perfect, if I'm going blind Tempest, or not entirely blind, but and alternatively, the Tempest, I'm getting them out because the opponent is going to be going Tempest because I have Colossus. And if they don't, well, Tempests are still pretty good in terms of air support for Archon, Storm, Zealot against Archon, Storm, Zealot. They tank a lot. They do decent damage with time warps. Like Storm is super supply cost efficient, and that's why I get that out first.
Hmm.
It allows you to play defensively and whatnot. Obviously, if they are staying on a purely ground composition, you want a lot of Archons with your Tempest, but I'm pretty sure Archon Tempest Storm beats Storm Archon on the ground.
Huh.
Basically,
Interesting.
Archons or Tempest versus Archon is actually fairly even, um, and you can abuse positioning and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, lately I've been favoring a quick mothership, which is actually really good in those
Wow.
situations, especially.
You just
And
dropped the
also,
core.
yeah,
Not something you hear
um,
often.
yeah. So Tempest being the backbone of your army in the late game is actually really good. And with Archon Zealot support, it's actually superior to a ground composition. Um, and of course, you're throwing down cannons and whatnot, as you do.
Wow, that's actually really cool. And it sounds like your style is much more defensive rather than super offensive, like one base all inning all the time. It's like you're saying things like, getting Sonic Storm is like a defensive tool. I think you said you open up 2 gate Robo expand. Did
No,
I?
one
No,
gate,
1 gate.
1 gate Stargate into 2 gate Stargate with
Oh,
a
okay.
safety Robo,
Okay.
which is canceled only if they go Phoenix, because
Mm.
then it's useless and it's a waste of gas.
Hmm.
Phoenix versus Phoenix, that's actually somewhat fun, but
It's you either hate Phoenix versus Phoenix or you love it. I
I love
found
it.
I love it too, man.
But it gets kind of awkward
Yeah.
once you're at like 40 Phoenix, because then it's like,
Mm.
well, do I stop building Phoenix and build Archons? Sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't, because then you fall behind in Phoenix and you lose a Phoenix fight. So I never stop building Phoenix.
Hmm.
Just always
Yeah.
keep building Phoenix.
Uh, but would you say that like playing more a little bit more defensive is something that you think is one of your strengths, or
Yeah.
actually I bring that up also because I saw in your Liquipedia article you have a quote from a Minigun saying this kid never attacks. or
Yeah.
something along
This
those
guy
lines.
really hates to attack. I mean, holy shit. Minigun. That was in reference to a game I played against him on Whirlwind a while
Mm-hmm.
back, which was like a 60-minute game. A lot of fun.
Oh god.
But yeah, that's the general um, principle
Mm-hmm.
of my play, I guess. And some people would find it boring. I actually find it very interesting. The
Yeah.
dynamics and basically the dynamics of how that works, and with a always having a defensive mind and a looking forwards to the late game. Because if I get to the late game, it's a pure matter of percentages. Like my win
Mm-hmm.
percentage is obviously way much higher if I get to the late
Mm-hmm.
game. So then that's kind of the goal.
Yeah. Play it how you feel strongly, man. And with that being said, let's kind of move on to Protoss versus Terran, let's say. And how do you feel about that?
Um, I like Protoss versus Terran. It's kind of a weird matchup given how I play. I do double forge Colossus into like Blink Colossus, Blink Stalker
Mm-hmm.
Colossus.
Hmm.
Um, and I used to do like, okay, maybe make two Colossus, then go Storm. Okay, now maybe go 3 or 4 Colossus into Storm. That leaves you really susceptible to weird random timings with like Viking Bio.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, what I've ended up settling on is a style where you go up to like 5 or 6 Colossus with Blink Stalkers, because even if they make 10, 12 Vikings, if you target down with Blink Stalkers, you're still going to have 2 or 3 Colossus left alive,
Mm-hmm.
and then with Zealot Warpins, you're fine. And I'm saying that in reference mostly to the 14, 15, 16-minute death pushes that are really popular. And with or without SCVs actually aren't terribly important at that stage. SCV
Mm-hmm.
pulls are kind of like more like 14-minute, 13-minute, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They could still be okay later, but obviously against 4 or 5 or 6 Colossus, they're not as useful. So it's actually kind of what my playstyle revolves around. It's kind of like having out 5 or 6 Colossus, 2/2 Blink, and a bunch of Blink Stalkers, a bunch of Zealots, and whatnot. And then if they engage, even if they're up 30, 40 supply, they're going to be down in upgrades. And with
Mm-hmm.
time warps and good Blink target fire and force field and whatnot, um, it's actually surprising how well you deal with those really scary pushes. And then from there, it's transitioning into 3/3, Charge Lot Archon, and then Storm. Um, don't go straight to the Storm. It's kind of risky. You want to get a few
Mm-hmm.
Archons out first because the Archons are super good against follow-up pushes, or just good in general against Bio Viking pushes that are meant to deal with Colossus-based armies. And then just kind of go from there again into Tempests and Cannons and Templar, which can go really long. Usually the games don't go that long because the Terran, they make those 15, 16-minute pushes,
Mm-hmm.
and then they either kill you or they don't kill you, and if they don't kill you, you're way ahead in upgrades and Storm and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just kind of my game from that point. I control the game with Storm and eventually Tempest. 3 Stargate Tempest as taking a 4th, um, which deals, which is to deal with like the Viking counts that go up to like 20 or more.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Tempests are to deal with, because Tempests are actually surprisingly good against Vikings, especially because with Storm in combination, kind of using defensive storms,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really hard to dodge storms and get at the Tempests.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's generally the PvT style.
Yeah, sounds like getting to that late game is your default state, man.
Yeah, I've had some really crazy late game PvTs because of course it goes into the Mass Tempest against Mass Raven.
Oh,
PDDs everywhere.
oh
So
god.
it's actually,
PEDs must be effective against Tempest. Oh my
oh
god.
yeah, they are. They're super good. So you have to like add in carriers, and actually you can also hallucinate Phoenix to deal with them, because
Oh.
hallucinated Phoenix take up energy. So it's actually really fun to play. I don't know how people may view how fun it is to watch as differently, but yeah. Anyway, that's about it.
But I mean, like, just the general sense that I'm getting from the style that you seem to play is you must have like really good late game control with those big late game armies, because you're talking about, like, say in PvP, you're talking about Tempest firing at the right units, you have storms going on, you have, maybe charge zealots, and then even like PvT, you have, blink stalkers to manage. Well, you also have Colossus, and then of course, I mean, PvT late game armies are already really complicated, but then you start mixing in
Yeah.
Tempest and stuff to try properly focus fire down the right units and everything. Like, it sounds like you feel pretty comfortable in your late game control then.
Yeah. Control is important, but it's actually not as important as tactical play.
Mm-hmm.
And positional play is actually what's more important. So the core elements of a RTS game.
Go figure, right?
Yeah. So that's actually what's more important is the positioning and the tactical play. But of course, micro is pretty important too. But it's Protoss, so you just split your units and A move.
Well, first we talk about the tactical play, and then we just hit the A button and hit their base, and then we win, right?
Yeah. Oh no, that's not really true. But yeah, PvT. You got Templar everywhere and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of play that style. Have Templar everywhere. And, yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, but let's move on to the last matchup. That is Protoss versus Zerg, and I think you've been doing already a great job. Just kind of give your breakdowns of the matchups and how you feel you play in them. So, take it away, man.
Protoss Berserker. This is probably actually the most standard matchup I play. So I went up Forge Fast Expand into Phoenix, 4 Phoenix into Robo. Kind of standard into I make 1 Immortal, 1 Warp Prism, and then into Colossus Void Ray. Kind of matching, like 1 Colossus per Void Ray. And that's actually the matchup that goes the most standard in the mid-game stages, because they 99% of the time, or 95, 90, will go Roach into Hydra, Roach Hydra into Viper, standard stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like take a third around 10 minutes or whatever, either right before I start the Colossus or right after. It's basically the right timing, because that's fairly safe, because all they're going to have out is Lings. Unless they're doing some really committed Roach timing, in which case you can afford to delay your third quite a bit. And then that Warp Prism is actually really important, because it's just flying around the map, harassing here and there, as well as scouting, and trying to deny a fourth, whatever. So yeah, it's kind of a Colossus Void Ray based comp. Not super heavy on either, just a few Colossus, a few Void Rays. Such that if they try and make a Hydra Roach timing, it's pretty easily deflected, and if they try and make a Corruptor timing, the Void Rays and the Phoenix are going to deal with that easily. Most of the time, of course, they go into Vipers, in which case I'll throw down the Twilight to get my +2. It's usually +1 attack, +1 armor, and then a Twilight timed out for +2. And then after that, the Templar. If they have a fast hive, actually skip Blink and go Charge, because you want Charge against Roach Hydra Viper is more useful than Blink, because Charge lots are pretty good against Hydras. And then we'll get the Storm and the Templar in case of a Viper timing. And then from there, it's usually into like Immortal Void Ray, because the standard thing to do is to go into Ultralisks. And of course, the whole time you're scouting for weird switches to Mutas or to Swarm Hosts or whatnot. Earlier switches to Mutas are actually fairly easily dealt with, since you keep the 4 Phoenix alive. It's actually super important, is keeping the 4 Phoenix alive. They deal pretty well with earlier Muta switches. So then it's just kind of Immortal, Void Ray, Storm, and just taking a fourth and going into the late game. That's actually the less late game focused game, or matchup rather, because of course Zerg can just go Swarm Host, Spore Crawler, and never lose. So you can't let them get to that, but I play fairly passive until I get that big ball of Storm, Void Ray, Immortal, which is usually going to be against like Roach Hydra Viper with Ultra or whatever. Or maybe by that point it's like Ultra Queen Viper or something, and they're trying to do a Muta switch, but like you're just going to be so cost efficient that a Muta switch isn't going to do jack shit, because you're going to have so much of your army left over. yeah, obviously it's kind of like the PvP where it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time it plays out standard where they go Roach Hider Viper, I go Storm and win because they stay on Roach Hider Viper or they try and go Ultra and don't have enough economy to totally overpower. But they can really mix it up even more so than PvP. So always have to be scouting and be preparing for the weird switches of any kind. The mutas, swarm
Mm-hmm.
host, or whatever. But again, it's really a standard in the mid game, and then kind of more passive in the late game, depending on what they do. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like PvZ.
Yeah, so it sounds kind of like you have like a general game plan that has some alterations depending maybe on whether they go for something like a sort of awkwardly timed mutalist switch or something like that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
for the most part, yeah. So would you say that that's sort of just also another thing about your playstyle is that you have like these goals, you pretty much execute that same general strategy with alterations depending on what they're doing every game?
Yep. And some people may be critical of that,
Mm-hmm.
saying it's too easily metagamed.
Yeah.
Um, in some cases, it's slightly metagameable, like PvP. If they go like a 5 minute Nexus,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of come up behind if they know I'm going to go 3 Phoenix and try and harass. So they take no damage from the 3 Phoenix. Um, After doing like a super early Nexus, then I'm kind of behind. But I know how to play from behind in PvP,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually kind of comfortable playing from behind, oddly enough. But so there's certain minor advantages people can sometimes get by metagaming, but for the most part, if there's a glaring gap or hole that can be exploited, obviously I kind of adapt to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an adaptable, reactive play style that I think can't be significantly metagamed entirely in any of the matchups. But maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Only one way to find out, man.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, just wait to be proven wrong, and then whatever, and then I make whatever changes I need to.
yeah, I mean,
Basically.
makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good strategy. But with that being said, let's actually kind of move along to a bit more recently how you've been doing. And I have to ask you, like, up until this point in your StarCraft career, what would you say has been your biggest achievement in StarCraft so far?
I don't know. I don't really have many personal achievements because I haven't had a ton of opportunity to play in major things. Back when there were lots of lands in North America, both traveling to them was an issue, and I wasn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I am kind of good, there's not many LAN events. Um, so, I mean, I try and play like online qualifiers for things when I can. Unfortunately, like I've missed all the Red Bull qualifiers, and I'm gonna miss the remaining ones because I've had midterms,
Mm-hmm.
and the last two are on the WCS finals weekend where I'm gone for that whole weekend. So it's kind of unfortunate, but those are kind of things I'm looking at to play. Haven't had a terribly stellar performance in any of those yet. Um, I guess my main aspect where I thrived was team leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Did a good number of team leagues on Clarity Academy. We actually did pretty damn well. Um, we almost won UASL. We were like first place in the regular season, and then we choked in the semifinals. Um, but I feel like I perform really well in team leagues. But I mean, that's mainly it. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
many major personal achievements yet. Still
Yeah.
working on finding the opportunities to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would honestly even say, like, just being on, becoming the captain of, like, say, Root City Academy is an achievement, but I can
I
see
guess,
kind of where your focus would be on, like the getting the win kind of achievements as a player.
yeah, I guess one maybe achievement would be getting on the Clarity Academy through that. It was like a month-long recruitment process, and then
Mm-hmm.
all fed into like a final tournament where I got fourth place, which the top four got a guaranteed spot. So that was
Mm-hmm.
fairly grueling and stressful. Or not grueling, but rather stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to to succeed and clinch that spot was a big relief at the time. Um, and then I guess more recently, WCG Canada. I played in the online qualifier and got third place in that. Lost to Desro. It's actually pretty damn good. Surprise. Um, haven't followed him a ton, but he's actually improved quite a surprising amount. Um, but and that gave me a seed to the national finals in Montreal, which I couldn't attend, so that was too bad. But so that was potentially, maybe if I was able to attend, maybe I would have had an okay performance there, and then maybe I could be talking about that right now. But that didn't happen. So,
Well,
but yeah, still looking for the stellar individual performances. Maybe next year. I guess my goal next year is to get into Challenger League or to qualify for a major tournament. Hopefully, WCS is restructured such that it's easier. I don't know. I guess easier for North American players to actually qualify for Challenger League. So.
yeah, and hey man, I'm gonna be rooting for you. I know there's gonna be a lot of other people rooting for you, but I do have to ask, and this kind of flows into my next question, which is, why don't more people know about you? I mean, it sounds like you're a very smart player. You're pretty analytical, and even if your style maybe isn't as you put it, like maybe playing that defensive style isn't as fun to watch for some people. Personally, I don't really mind it too much, but what do you feel has really stopped you from getting those big wins that maybe would push your name out there?
Tough question. I guess you said something there that I guess I kind of want to make a point out is how you said it can't be terribly exciting, the passive style. But actually it's surprising because it does make for some very exciting games a lot of the time, but it's very hinged on the opponent. If the opponent's going to be the aggressor and whatnot, it still makes for an exciting game. It's just if the opponent says, okay, he's going to play defensively, I'll play defensively too, then it gets to that boring. I haven't. I'm hoping to eventually beat Mana's new record. I've played some games that look like that, but not as long. I never actually 3 hours. That's actually very impressive to me. I've been up an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, but 3 hours, wow. But anyway, to the question, why don't more people know about me? I guess partially, I guess I'll start by not blaming myself. The North American scene hasn't been great for exposure for up-and-coming players because there's not been many opportunities to play and get yourself out there, as I've said. Maybe I've just done a bad job of looking for those opportunities, but anyway, why don't more people? I guess it also has to do with how I've kind of been still up and coming. So on Clarity Academy, maybe grew some more people knowing about me there and whatnot. And hopefully being now on Root Academy, more people will know about me through that and continuing going forward. It's a hard question.
I think that's a good answer.
I mean, I guess I also haven't been able to devote as much as I'd like to be able to have those breakout performance in the limited number of opportunities that there are out there for the North American players, like IEM qualifiers or whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's part of it. Also, I'm not a huge ladder player, and I guess that plays a big role. Like if you're top 16 GM, that adds a lot to in terms of getting exposure. Whereas I kind of hover around 100, rank 100, because I don't play a ton. Lately, that's partially due because I haven't been able to play a ton.
Yeah.
because of university midterms and whatnot.
Hmm.
But just in general, I don't grind ladder a lot because it's actually very exhausting when every game you play is like 40 minutes long
Yeah,
and you're like totally on edge the whole game because you're playing the defensive, adaptive, reactive style. Um, it's very stressful.
I'm
So
sure, man.
that contributes to it somewhat too. But yeah, so I guess that somewhat got to do with it. If I had the time to devote full time, grinding ladder, I could maybe be up there, rank 20, 30, whatever.
Hmm.
Streaming, I guess streaming's another thing. I actually did stream a lot at the end of August, right before school started, and started to get some decent viewer numbers. By decent, I mean like 10 to 20, but that's decent for like, just a random GM player who doesn't play a lot, or who hadn't previously streamed a lot. So I guess that would also do a lot if I was able to stream consistently, which I guess I'd be looking to do when school is on downtime,
Hmm.
is get more into the streaming and commit more to the ladder to get that exposure.
Hmm.
Um, I actually have all my stream all set up with root or seed stuff and all that. It looks all very nice, but haven't been able to stream yet. Um, Also because I have some minor PC technical issues that I got to sort out. Um,
Hmm.
so I guess that's another part of it. Um, 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 and that means I'm done with my answer.
Yeah, I honestly I think you have a lot of really fair points. Like, obviously the North American scene, not quite as thriving as some people would like it to be, maybe myself included. And there are a lot of course, different factors, school and everything. Definitely makes a lot of sense. But let me kind of ask you, like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? Ideally, I mean.
Ideally, ideally, let's see. EG on EG, I've won. I have just finished winning. Uh, or, or I'm just about to go play at BlizzCon 2015. I'm number one in WCS points. But okay, realistically speaking, let's see. 2 years. I actually don't know what I'm looking to do in 2 years. I guess I'd be third year university. Um, I guess hmm, ideally I'd have taken some time off from university to
Hmm.
pursue pro gaming. Ideally, I'd have grown to a point where that would be viable. Maybe I'm on an indefinite break in 2 years. Obviously, this is still thinking optimistically. Um, I guess ideally in 2 years. I mean, a lot can happen. If you asked me in 1 year, that would almost be an easier answer
Hmm.
because maybe I'd like to be on like a root main team in 1 year, I'd like to have broken out. But in 2 years, if I haven't broken out in 1 year, well, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. Um, oh, breaking out. No.
Yeah.
It's like in the movie when they say the title of the movie. I'm like, oh.
It was completely unscripted. I should open this show up like real talk, man. Unscripted, unedited. I can't even remember the rest.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to have, I don't know, ideally in 2 years, MLGs will be back and whatnot, and everything will
Hmm.
be all roses in the North American scene. I'll have gone to an MLG and maybe I'll knock out some Koreans or whatever.
Hmm.
You know, yeah. Um, I mean, I guess I could just the easy out would be to just draw a parallel to an existing player and say like, oh, I like to be a suppy in 2 years or something. Still
Yeah.
finishing off school, but still being like in the Premier League, North America.
Hmm.
Okay, that's my answer. It's my optimistic, ideal answer. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
I think it's a good answer, man. And I'm gonna wish you the best of luck in that, because hey, I've seen your play. I actually got the chance to cast some of the UASL season final games, and I did see you play. And hey, even though Clarity didn't end up taking that, I know that you're a fantastic player, and I know you're gonna be doing some great things. Hopefully, the region locking also will work out in your favor for next year, of course, for WCS 2014. But hey, Miles, it's been absolutely lovely to have you on. Did you want to give any shout outs before we kind of close up?
Shout out to my team, Seed Gaming. Follow us at Root4Seed,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yep.
Formatted just like the Root Twitter. Also follow Root. Check out Root. Great team. Follow me at ROOTBones. Shout out to our sponsor, TTE Sports, and to, I guess, Root's other sponsors, which I don't know off the top of my head, like DAS, Keyboard, Twitch, and whatnot. Yeah, mainly TTE Sports, since it is it is TT Seed or whatever, is kind of the title sponsor of Seed. Shout out to you for having me on the show. Thanks a lot. Great to be on. I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the thank you. And it's actually been wonderful to have you on. Learned quite a bit actually, and I just love talking with players who think really in depth about the matchups and have like all this stuff kind of game plans formed out. And I know that there are quote unquote criticisms about players who say like, hey, I go for this one sort of style, like pretty much all the games. I don't really vary it up, but I have this reliable style that I put a lot of thought into. And honestly, for players like maybe even myself who don't get as much time to play, like those are the kind of people that I really look up to. And I say like, hey, you know what? If you have so much faith, you've gotten to where you are at. I mean, you're this GM level player. You actually had some really, really awesome results. And you don't rely on this kind of idea of Protoss has to vary up everything to be effective. Like,
Yeah.
it's really, really awesome to see. I mean, in a way, you're kind of like a North American SK Telecom 1 Reign. Just because you play from behind and you
I'll
play
take
out
that.
those big macro games. You play super defensive. I think it's awesome. But gonna be looking forward to seeing some great things from you in the future. And guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't noticed already in the Twitch chat, if you're watching this live on Twitch, there should be links to all those kind of references that we have over here from Bones. So guys, go follow him and make sure you check him out on Twitter, Twitch, check out Root Seed, check out Root and all of their sponsors. And of course, my name is Fear Dragon. If you guys enjoyed this show, please leave any kind of comments over the Twitch chat and also in the YouTube comments, or, you know, just feel free to message me on Team Liquid, post in the Team Liquid chat, wherever. I would love to see it and just get any kind of feedback on the show or even my casting or whatever. But with that being said, also consider following over here on twitch.tv/FearDragon64 for the live show that happens at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern time zone. And of course, if you want to catch the VODs, it's over at youtube.com/FearDragon64. With that being said, it's been absolutely wonderful again to have you on, Miles, and hope everyone has a wonderful night. Take care.